That is true, Ed. And that guy today owns the New York Mets. I used to run token economics for Zynga. I was running 300 million person plus token economies. So pretty sure this guy's the smartest guy in the world. I actually started a New York token economics meetup specifically so I could just get this guy in a room, ask him questions for a half hour, and have other smart people ask him questions. And the third, and I think it's my greatest insight into communities, my belief that a community can scale, highly correlated to what I call value delta. So, in other words, community makes something for community members at a cost of X. Community members get that thing and they value it at Y. And the bigger the difference between X and Y, the bigger the community can become. And that's why, if you think about it, the biggest communities in the world are the things with the biggest value delta. And we have a collective name for those things. You know, we call those things?
Religion.
Exactly. Well done.
Hello, friends, and welcome back to the Bitcoin Economy Podcast. Today's guest is one of my favorite people. His name is Lou Kerner, and he's one of the most influential voices in the crypto ecosystem. A longtime investor, community builder, founder of Crypto Mondays, and so much more. In this conversation, we get into the stories, the early days on Wall Street, the moments that shifted his conviction, the framework he uses to understand Bitcoin and investing in the global economy, and we explore the rise of communities, the macro forces reshaping the world, and where the industry is heading. I had a lot of fun in this conversation, and I hope you do too. So please enjoy this podcast with Lou Kerner.
You said that you are more confident than ever in a $1 million Bitcoin price target. What has happened recently that has made your conviction go up and not down?
Um, I would say, weirdly, the the downdraft in the market, and just to see that, the market's at play. Like, I'm looking to see, is anything changing to make me, I've got a thesis. I think the macro lesson I learned from the first bubble I went through, when I was running my first startup, uh, uh, that I let the market tell me how much my own company was worth at the peak of the bubble and at the bottom of the market, both of which were, horrific mistakes. And so, I have a thesis now, and I'm just looking around. Is there any reason to change that? And that would be that there's some market dynamic that changes in this downdraft. It's just part of, I've got a joke. I have a word I use to describe the tendency of markets to swing between bubble and crash and bubble again. I call that capitalism. It's just what it does.
So, all right, I just to paint the context for everyone here. It's November 21st on the day of us recording, and Bitcoin has 2025. Bitcoin has uh, precipitously fallen in the last few weeks from its 120,000 high water mark down to now around 85,000. So some people are spooked.
It
They're
was it was 80,000, a few hours ago.
Oh no, is that 80,000?
Yeah.
Uh, yeah, it's an interesting time to be recording this, but some people are spooked, and I think you see those memes also of people like lining up out the door to buy Bitcoin at north of a
Yeah,
hundred
that's
thousand.
an epic meme. It's so true.
It's so good, but now it's at 85,000 and everyone's freaking out. So you having a background in Wall Street, what's your advice to people who are holding bags and sort of a little bit worried about the Bitcoin price action?
So I was a Wall Street analyst for the first third of my career. I learned two macro lessons. Macro lesson one, um, markets are efficient, turns out. It turns out the massive macro trend of all of our lifetimes is indexing, because it turns out computers are better than humans, and they're less expensive. Uh, but the second is that you can actually have an edge. And, personally, I believe I've got an edge in Bitcoin, in terms of how I think of it. And, and if you have a view, if you have a thesis, the price should not have any impact whatsoever on your thesis.
Well, what's your edge? What's your thesis?
When I saw the crypto light on June 29th, 2017, what I had seen, I've been a Wall Street analyst. Um, The last time I thought and really well, the first time I really thought I had edge was when I saw Facebook in late 2009, because the second company I ran was the largest social network in the world. So, I had I think, a better idea of how much a social network could be worth than anybody else on the planet. But when I saw the crypto light on June 29th, 2017, what I saw was, for the first time in history, we have a tool set to solve for the community. And, rather than the man in the middle, and up until Bitcoin, the world had worked from everything was run by a guy in the middle who basically fucks 100% of the people 100% of the time. And now, for the first time, there's a better way for the people who want to, not for everybody. But I am pretty sure, I mean, even by that time, the everybody who had been in Bitcoin, like, I define a community. I go around giving a talk called 10 Thoughts on Community. And I start with, what does community even mean? To me, a community means an ecosystem where, when it works, everyone gets more out of it than they give. And by that definition, Bitcoin has been an unbelievable community. Anybody who had been in it for any period of time had been so overwhelmed by what they gotten back that they were all going around telling everybody, "Hey, Bitcoin, Bitcoin, Bitcoin." And every day, I'm pretty sure for the rest of my life, more people are going to join the community, and that does not mean that the price goes up every day. Um, and a lot of people who come to the community for the money, when the money leaves, those people will leave, um, until the next time they see it blow by the last high, and they'll go, "Oh God, I should have gone." And then everybody told me to hodl, right? And that's how most of us came. You got to learn the hard way.
Yeah. So it is cyclical. People, the communities that have been,
Well, everything's cyclical, right? It's not like just Bitcoin.
yeah, yeah, yeah. Why do you think that is? Why is everything
It's
cyclical?
human nature. It is human nature, and it's really a one of the great, and look, I'm not a communist, but to the degree that communism, again, is run by some guy in the middle who's going to fuck us, right?
Yeah,
But I mean, it's weird because communism is so close to community, right? And the difference, though, between communism as we think about it and community as we think about it is that there's not a guy in the middle who's going to fuck us, right? There's nobody in the middle of Bitcoin running it.
yeah.
But it's run by a community, can evolve. I think the fact that it doesn't evolve much is actually, part of its value to most people.
I I like thinking about the cyclical nature of things sort of as like an evolutionary principle. So if you've ever read Richard Dawkins's the Selfish Gene, he basically argues that like
What's it
every
called? The selfish sheep?
the selfish gene,
What I'm
uh,
still.
the, like genetics, your genes.
Oh, Gene. Okay.
But basically, one of his arguments in it is that um, everything is survival of the fittest down to the most microscopic level. So it's like your genes fighting against other genes, and if there is a disbalance in the equilibrium, then you'll see the genes change and evolve in order to uh, capitalize on that balance. And I think you sort of see these things in inorganic systems as well, like politics, um, Bitcoin, everything sort of has this like natural flow and balancing act, and I find it interesting because I think it almost relates down to like fundamentally what is human, what are our genetics.
Yeah, no, I agree. I mean, I think the gene, I mean, I think at the core, a different way of saying that is, how I think of it is that, uh, is that we're here to procreate. I think that is the driving force. And, like, one of the things that I thought about, like, because I always think about my actions, well, how is that helping me procreate? Although I'm not procreating. Um, and like one that I struggled with is I have tended to believe that the grass is greener.
Hmm.
And most of the time, the grass has not been greener. That has been my experience. But why do I continue to, and lots of other people, and I think it's because actually we're not solving for ourselves, actually. we're solving for the species. And some of us have to be, in order for us to find new grass, some of us have to go looking for it, even if the odds for us individually are bad. If when we do find it, we tell the rest of the species, hey, look at this awesome grass.
So Lou, you really are, I would say, maybe one of the world's foremost experts on community. You started Crypto Mondays.
Well,
You built.
thank you for that. And I do call myself community savant, but I also, I mean, I pray to God that in 10 years I will be seen as kind of the one-eyed man in the land of the blind, because nobody's really, it's not a thing yet that people really appreciate, um, and give it the resource that it needs to really blossom.
Yeah, it's hard and underrated. I mean, getting people together is not trivial, but like you're saying, it is core fundamentally to us as humans. So
Yeah, look.
maybe, oh, I was just gonna say, maybe if you could tell us, like, give us the spark notes of your 10 thoughts on community. Like what are the important principles?
Well, I say there are three that that are I think the most fundamental. First, as I say, is what's the definition? The second is the understanding of, that, at the atomic level, a community is two people, and we've all been in two-person communities where one plus one equals 100. So I believe if you live in a world of community, you actually live in a world of abundance. And the third, and I think it's my greatest insight into communities, my belief that a community can scale, highly correlated to what I call value delta. So, in other words, community makes something for community members at a cost of X. Community members get that thing and they value it at Y. And the bigger the difference between X and Y, the bigger the community can become. And that's why, if you think about it, the biggest communities in the world are the things with the biggest value delta. And we have a collective name for those things. We call those things.
Religion?
Exactly. Well done. A tiny percentage of people actually get that. So kudos to you, unless you'd heard it before. But and even if you had, most people don't even remember it, because I've asked many people second time, saying, you've asked me this before. um, but yeah, and look, and that's, I'm not, making any value judgment, positive or negative, on religion, other than, right, they produce a book for a quarter, and how much is salvation worth? And that's why they've scaled to billions of people and lasted thousands of years.
So how do you think this translates into Bitcoin? Because I think what we're seeing more and more is with each cycle, more and more people. The trend line is that more and more people are joining the Bitcoin community. What does that actually mean, and what value are they getting that's like the equivalent of salvation, or is it strictly an economic value of, hey, Bitcoin's going up, and now I have.
Right. But I mean, I think for most people, I mean, for lots of people, it's an economic thing, and there's, nothing wrong at all for those people who, for that, that's what it's about. But I think for lots of people, certainly, including myself, it's freedom.
Freedom in an economic sense, or freedom in the.
Freedom that, well, uh, 2 months before, yeah, I'd gone down the rabbit hole, 13, 14. Um, but 2 months before I saw the crypto light in June of 2017, my ex-wife sued me for divorce, which I was fine with. I was aware we had an unhappy marriage, but she did something that is actually quite common if you make a buck in New York, which is she accused me of fraud. And the next day, the government seized all my assets.
Whoa,
Yeah, well, but I'm not saying don't feel bad for me. The best divorce joke ever is, why divorce is so expensive,
why?
because it's worth it.
So okay, so you've personally been the victim of uh, government seizure, which I feel like
Yeah,
is.
and it's crazy. And the only time, because I'm a long term, I'm not a day trader. I don't think short term. I think that's far harder. Um, but the only short term trading that I did in the 8.5 years that I've been here is the day that SVB went down, because all the people who had their money there, they didn't know if the government was going to back it up or not, and so they now had that same feeling that I had, was one day they woke up and all their money was gone.
Have you ever had? any of those other moments in your years in crypto? Like, were you part of BlockFi or Celsius or any of these platforms that ultimately went bankrupt?
You know, no, I mean, not, I guess because I'm a genius, but because of my background as an analyst, I deeply, deeply, deeply have to understand something. Like, I
Mm.
really have to believe I've got an edge. Otherwise, I think markets are efficient and there are very few, so yeah, I don't need a Celsius or the other folks to give me Bitcoin. And if I don't understand how it works, you can go in and what's awesome about this, what is awesome about this is you can just read the code, right? You don't have to give anybody and trust anybody. Go and read the code. For me, I'm interested in anything going up and to the right. And so when Terra Luna was going up and to the right, I wanted to understand what was going on. And so, went in, read the code, understood what it did. Okay, I get it. 6 months later, it implodes. 9 months later, and CNBC calls me and they ask me if I'll go on and comment on it. And I go, okay, I can do that. And the very first question they asked me was Terra Luna a Ponzi scheme? And I said, absolutely not. I said, Terra Luna was a Ponzi strategy. A scheme is when they lie to you about what they're doing. But if you go in and you read the code, said, this is what's going on. And in my view, if people want to invest in a Ponzi strategy, I think they should be allowed to.
So, putting on your Wall Street hat here, uh, who is selling Bitcoin? Like why are we seeing such a precipitous price drop? Is it because of leverage? Is it because tax loss harvesting? Like what's going on right now?
So look, I mean, personally, my belief is nobody has any idea what is going to happen tomorrow, right? And the truth is, actually, nobody has any idea what happened yesterday, right? But tomorrow they'll talk about what happened today as, oh, here's why blah, blah, blah happened, right? Why is the weather what it is today, right? That's the same answer. Why is the weather? Because that's what nature, from everything that it is, I think it is an infinite number of things that are going into all of this, that are all at play in any short term, right, period of time. But, that's why I think making a 1 year prediction of where something is going to be is very, very hard, let alone a 1 day or 1 hour. But I think it's much easier to make a prediction where something is going to be in 10 years. And so, that's what I did. Since I was a Wall Street analyst, I put out two price targets, 25 years. The first on Facebook, and the second I put out a 10-year price target on Bitcoin in January of 2021 for $1 million 10-year price target based on
Well,
math.
yeah, yeah. What was the math that you were doing to back
The
into?
math was just really simply, and again, I'm the macro, so like for when I wrote my Facebook report, all I did was, they had, at the time, I don't know, 4% of all internet time, but they were growing like this. So I just extrapolated it out and said, okay, in 5 years, I'll have 10%. And, the internet market is, advertising 150 billion. So there'll be $15 billion revenue. And that was off by less than 1% for 2014. And, for, for me, Bitcoin is a store of value. I actually think there's a high probability that it will be other things because it has such a unique set of qualities. But even if at all it is a store of value, obviously over time it's a better store of value and it will more value will accrete to it. The question is, okay, what's that time? So I say, okay, well, let's just assume that gold continues to grow its market cap at the same rate that gold was for the last 50 years, and assume in 10 years, Bitcoin gets 50% of the store value market. And, I gave it an update about 9 months ago now. And, every year I do. And I'm actually tracking amazingly well, because there were only two factors, and I was off wildly on both, but they're offsetting. So one was the gold has been growing at 3.5 times the average rate for the last 5 years of growing its market cap. And not because they're finding more gold, but because the value of gold is going up. And that obviously makes more sense that we're at a period of time today where the vast majority of people, I mean, the Chinese government, okay, well, how much Bitcoin are they going to buy? Right? But they're buying a lot of gold. And I think
So
over time, certainly they will buy more and more Bitcoin.
yeah, so what do you think is necessary for Bitcoin to become the de facto store of value as opposed to gold or in tandem with gold? Do you
I,
think it,
I don't think it needs to necessarily become the de facto store of value. Again, what gives me just unbelievable confidence is every day more people. Is it going to be 5%, 10%, 80% of the people? But I really think today it's not 1% of the people. I don't know these crazy numbers they have. You can walk down the street. I walk down the street. I'm with people all the time, and they tell me these crazy percentage of people they think own Bitcoin. I'm like, well, let's ask 20 people on the street. Nobody ever owns Bitcoin. Seriously.
yeah, they think they're too late. Like they're like, ah, well,
Exactly.
like a hundred.
Exactly.
Yeah.
My favorite Bitcoin tweet is from 2011. Some guy tweeted, "Can't believe I sold all my Bitcoin at 6 cents. It's 80 cents now."
No way.
Yeah, it's an epic. Yeah.
Oh, man. So I guess you really have like you were telling me before, you've been around Bitcoin for a long time now, and you actually were running a podcast with people who have now done incredibly well in the space and were very early. What were some of the counterintuitive lessons that you've picked up from being around the space for so long, or things that you've noticed some of these people who get onto trends early, like what characteristics do they have that other people should look to add to their own lives?
Um, I mean, I would say that the defining characteristic, I mean, one of the great things for me about I've been 8.5 years, 24/7 crypto is that nobody looks at Bitcoin or crypto Web3 and gets it. Nobody, right? Everybody looks at 99+% of the people go and they move on, and some tiny percentage go and they go down the rabbit hole. And and it's not rocket science. It doesn't take years of study, right? But it takes like, some reading, some understanding, some looking around, an open mind. But more than anything, it takes curiosity. And so I think that's really the defining characteristic today of everybody in crypto. And I think curious people are the best people.
So curiosity, the willingness to dive deeper, and also
Open mind, wide, you know, just, yeah. I mean, the world changes every day. And I mean, I know myself, I joke that, yeah, I truly believed until 2015 in American exceptionalism. That is what I was taught. And when I looked around through those goggles, that is what I saw. But 2015, I learned for obvious reasons that, we're a banana republic like everybody else. And that makes a lot more sense.
so I guess jumping back to like maybe some of these core fundamental lessons of success that some of our listeners can latch on to. One key thing I'm hearing from you is also beyond curiosity is really fundamentally understanding something. So like if you're going to invest, if you're going to
Having an edge, having an edge. Like, and what does an edge even mean? Like, and quite honestly, it took me a long time to really learn what an edge is. Yeah, I was a Wall Street analyst, junior
Mhm.
analyst, and I heard about edge and I heard about edge, and I didn't quite understand what it was. And I tried to get a job, and people would ask me, "What's your edge?" And then I got to Goldman Sachs as a senior analyst. My first day, I got a piece of paper, and the director of research, welcome to Goldman Sachs, says, "Hey," hands me a piece of paper, says, "Your job is you have an idea, you call these 10 people in this order." Okay, yeah, I can do that. And so a couple months in, I get an idea, call the first guy, great idea. Everybody says that. It goes on for 10 months. The sixth time I call the first guy, he tells me, "You know what? For the first time I started calling him, I think you're wrong." Tells me why I'm wrong. I tell him why I think he's wrong. He says, "Look, we can agree to disagree. But for the first time since you started calling me, I'm only going to buy half a position." Well, I don't understand. If I'm wrong, why would you buy any position? He says, "Because I know you have a piece of paper in front of you with 9 other names on it, and they're too stupid to know you're wrong." And the light bulb went off. That is it. That is true, Ed. And that guy today owns the New York Mets. So,
Really? It,
yeah.
it's Steve Cohen.
I mean, it wasn't Steve Cohen directly, but somebody that worked for Steve Cohen at SAC. Actually, I didn't talk to Steve Cohen until I was like 2 years into crypto. And somebody, he asked some friend of his who's the smartest guy he knew was a guy who was a good friend of mine. So he told him me. So I went to his house for dinner, quite excited to meet him. I'm really, he's so legendary. And, he couldn't have been nicer. And, not surprisingly, I was not able to teach him anything about crypto.
Why? Because he knew it all
He
already, or
already knew it all. Yeah.
interesting.
Yeah.
What lessons can people take away from the tycoons of Wall Street? Is that the fundamental one? Is
Look, I
how
mean, Sarah, one of my biggest lessons is there's an infinite number of ways to skin a cat, right? So it's not like try to be like this question, what is your edge, right? What can you do? What can you see, and you don't even have to be the first person, right? In 2017, it didn't feel, I mean, it was the greatest investment in the history of mankind already. I mean, it did not feel early. But the only reason why I felt comfortable. It was early. I mean, because I knew nobody owned it yet, right? You could go down the street. How can it be early if nobody owns it yet?
and I guess we're still kind of seeing that now. So
It
taking
feels very much like the analogy that I use is so I was as a junior analyst, actually the first company I ever picked up as a senior analyst was America Online. I was at Merrill Lynch. I was the first analyst at a bulge bracket firm to pick up America Online. And so I was right there at the beginning of it. And the reason why America Online was taking off then was because the internet was taking off then because it had been, do you know when the internet first email was sent?
late 80s, the
69. 69.
69. No, I didn't know
Yeah,
that.
yeah, yeah. It's been around for 25 years, but nobody used it because you had to read a book to use it, similar to crypto today. And then Mark Andreessen invented the browser, and then all of a sudden everybody could use it and get massive value without having to read a book. And to me, that's what crypto has to do. And I assume we're on our way there.
Yeah, so for me, something that I really like is tokenomics with crypto. I find it fascinating, and I think it's potentially a new incentive system for businesses, consumers, and community.
It
Uh,
brings you to the choir.
yeah. So maybe can you tell us a little bit about tokenomics and where do you see this evolving? Because I feel like we're still so early. It's just echo
Sure.
chambers.
So
People
there
get
are, right. In order for community to be a thing, you really only need to solve for two things. Token economics is how do you incentivize the community to create this, where 1 + 1 can equal 100. We're really, there's this abundance and there's this value created. So how do you incentivize people in such a way and I learned about this when I was running Bolt. So the second company I ran, the largest social network in the world before MySpace. And we had advertisers who were banging down our door if we could get kids to interact with the advertising. But we couldn't pay them enough. But we ended up creating a badge that would scroll around their profile, along with other things they could do to earn a badge. And the badges conveyed status in our community. So status for us was free to give, but for 10% of our kids really valued it highly. And we were able to make, as a company, a lot of money off of that value delta.
that's so interesting. Like the things that people value, like skins.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly. And now actually, so right, so tokenomics is all about how do you incentivize people. The smartest thing I ever heard. So when I realized that token economics was the thing when I first saw crypto, it's like, okay, well, who's the smartest people can tell me, teach me. And the ICOs are going like this in 2017. And literally the first five people I talked to, I kid you not, charging 500, 1,000, $2,000 an hour. And I was smarter than they were on token economics. And I'd been thinking about it 2 minutes. And the sixth guy I talked to, the first thing he said blew me away. The second thing he said blew me away. I'm saying, I'm sorry, hold on a minute. How do you know this? And he goes, I used to run token economics for Zynga. I was running 300 million person plus token economies. So pretty sure this guy's the smartest guy in the world. I actually started a New York token economics meetup specifically so I could just get this guy in a room and ask him questions for a half hour and have other smart people ask him questions. And the smartest thing he said, like the most amazing thing he said was that when you create these systems, until you put it out in the wild, you have no idea what's going to happen. And so he said the most important thing is that you're able to dial it in after kind of you release it into the wild. And he said if you have just one knob to turn, it's very hard to dial it in. If you have just one knob to turn, it's very hard to dial it in. So what you want to do is to have multiple knobs so you're able to dial it in. And in January, kind of, and that, to me, that's always been a thought in my head, about that's been like the foundational fact of how I think about token economics. And in January, I had an epiphany that maybe we can leverage AI and to give each one of us has our own unique, set of token economics, right? We all value stuff differently. And by the way, what we value changes every day, right? And AI can know us and what we value and put us into different communities, that has that maximum value delta.
Super interesting.
Yeah, I started something Crypto Mondays did called because we started building this decentralized AI agent called Monday, and we quickly realized there's a laundry list of problems with decentralized AI agents. And so rather than solve them in a silo, we started something called the Decentralized AI Agent Alliance to, so that anybody can join now. We can solve them collectively. And today we have 160 members, founding members.
So what's happening between that intersection between crypto and AI? Are you seeing it primarily with tokenomics, or are there other
No, I'm
things?
seeing, I mean, I think at a very basic level, I think the most obvious thing is that we're moving to a world where AI agents are going to be the dominant driver of, I think, our economy. I think, over time they'll get smarter and smarter and smarter. And, therefore they're going to transact. And I think a lot of the transactions for them to get information so they can get smarter and make the best decisions, and there'll be tiny transactions, and I'm pretty sure that's not going to be Visa or MasterCard, right? That's going to be stable coins.
Why? Because it's quicker, more efficient,
Yeah,
programmable.
exactly. It's costless. It's tiny. It's structured to scale. It's ready today.
Yep.
It's working today.
Are
Right? That's what the whole 402. I mean, 402 already, which is the AI agent, kind of e-commerce layer, is like some meaningful percentage of like revenue for AI agents and decentralized AI agents.
Yeah, interesting. This is something I know nothing about. So people like AI agents are like where is that working currently? And they are using crypto rails for
It's not
payment.
really working anywhere. I mean, to be truthful, I mean, it's really early. It's really early.
Okay.
But you can see it. I mean, it's coming. It's coming like a freight train, right? The stuff is getting, there's something called Amari's Law.
Okay. What's that?
And Amari was a professor at Stanford in the 70s when he coined it. And Amari's Law is the fact that the impact of all great new technology, and obviously in my mind, AI agents, is overestimated in the short run and underestimated in the long run. And that's everything all the time.
Okay, interesting. So Amari's law is that it's short term over, long term under.
Yeah, like in January, I mean, the AI agent space, when we started DIA,
Yep.
Decentralized AI Agent Alliance in January, certainly the intersection of AI and decentralization was hotter than it is today, which is crazy because, I mean, there's been so much advancement, so much has happened. But, again, that's just markets, and that's why you have to have a thesis because, a lot of people didn't have a thesis. Oh, this was hot and now they left. And, you know, uh, the way to be most successful, obviously, is to be there early. right? If you wait until it's a thing to, then there are already lots of people there who see that it's a thing probably before you did.
Yeah, contrarian and right.
Yeah, it's not, I don't think it doesn't, to me, it doesn't have anything to do with contrarian.
Okay.
It's just seeing something that you think is underappreciated. Again, not about being the first. When I published my Facebook report, it was traded at 16 billion by Barry Silbert at Second Market. And in March of 2010, people say, how much higher can it go? It was 100 turns ago.
Yeah, that's. I mean, it's crazy to think where it's at now. What, it's $2 trillion company by market cap?
Like that, trillion and a half.
I hope you bought when you
Yeah,
published no.
yeah. No, my ex-wife is quite happy.
So I guess touching on one last topic that I think you are
So I'm
really.
going to get some water. I can hear you.
Yeah, no worries. You're a foremost expert on, and it's institutions coming into Bitcoin. So we have the rise of DATs, we have treasury companies, we have companies that are putting Bitcoin on their balance sheet. What's happening with institutional adoption with Bitcoin specifically?
So look, I mean, it's happening. Tell the truth, it wasn't something that I thought a lot about. When I first get in, that's not why I come, but it's obvious. Wall Street. It's like Wall Street and porn, right? They're the first ones to adopt anything. Um, and for me, I mean, I'm keeping my eye open. Does well, I think the question is, does you know, uh, Wall Street embracing this really diminish what it is to me? And so far, the answer is no. I think one of the reasons why Zcash has had the run it's had, over the last short period of time, it's up like 10x. Um, is there's now this kind of rising, well, all this institutional, and Bitcoin never adopted this privacy thing. And so Zcash is seen as like an insurance policy against, further deterioration or, somehow being co-opted by Wall Street, which to me, yeah, obviously I'm keeping my eye open, I'm looking around, but that doesn't seem to be, any kind of near-term threat, any more than quantum is a near-term threat.
Got it. And then what about DATs? Like, do you think these are what are they making index funds? Like is it similar to
Yeah,
sort
I
of.
think that's a good way to look at it. It's just another tool. The way that I simply think about DATs is, you can take a Bitcoin and you can put it in your wallet. In 10 years, you'll have a Bitcoin in your wallet, right? That value of the Bitcoin will go up a lot, but you'll have a Bitcoin. If you put it in a DAT, in 10 years, yeah, you can have 1.5 Bitcoin in your wallet. Who doesn't want that? Not
Yeah,
for
so
everybody, but if they're able to do that, and there are multiple ways of creating yield from Bitcoin. The most basic one is like the basis trade. Effectively leveraging its volatility.
yeah, interesting. And do you think like is yield an essential component for Bitcoin? Is that something that needs to be built into it for it to
Well,
become reserved?
sorry. Um, I mean, personally, I mean, it's funny how you look at it. For me, what is yield? You know, like all yield, right? All you're doing to get yielded Ethereum, and I'm a big Ethereum fan. Ethereum's the best. For me, it's all about community. There's no community at Ethereum is so far above, today, any other community. And I think they're gaining ground, not losing ground. Um, uh, uh, I'm sorry, now I lost my train of thought. What was the question?
The question was yield for Bitcoin.
Oh, well, what is yield? I mean, yield on Ethereum, all yield on Ethereum is stealing from the people who aren't staking. And we're calling that yield. Okay. I mean, how is that some great thing that Bitcoin needs? I don't understand. But that they need staking because staking is what provides the security. So, I get that, but okay, we don't need that. So why the hell would we have this system where part of the community stealing from another part of the community. And I get, I mean, you call it stealing, we're not stealing, we're compensating them for staking their coin, and that's fine. But to me, it feels disingenuous to call it yield, but it is what it is. And I don't care what the market calls it. I'm not, I just think it's funny. Um, but there are, it doesn't, the yield that's created doesn't have to be uh, uh, native.
Native to the protocol.
Yeah, it doesn't have to be created by Bitcoin,
Mhm.
right? Basis trade, you don't need, that's not, that's just a market monetizing the yield,
So I guess
monetizing the volatility.
yeah, and I think you do see some trading firms that are doing incredibly well with that. Like Two
Yeah,
Prime.
Athena, that's what Athena does.
Yeah. Yeah, and it works. I mean, I think there's a lot of
Yeah.
debate for
I
Bitcoin.
mean, this isn't a new thing. It's not, it says nothing, it's been around a long time.
Yeah. So I guess we're coming up on time here, and I gotta ask you because you like to make some predictions. You've had two very strong ones in the past. But what do you think?
And the
What,
great thing about a 10-year, prediction is, if I'm wrong, nobody will even remember. You make a 1-year prediction, all that stuff comes back to haunt you.
so what do you think's on the horizon for the future? Any predictions? Anything else novel that you can share with our listeners here?
Yeah, I mean, I think one of my, and I'm not saying this is a counter view, but one of the things I find very strange about Bitcoin, it's a hugely different community, broadly. I've found, if you go to the event, um, you know, uh, the Bitcoin is absolutely nothing wrong with it. I think Bitcoin, is, has evolved now to become something much more institutional and much more about making money, which is great. We all like to make money. I still think there's a massive ethos thing in Web3, that you don't see in, nearly as much in Bitcoin. Maybe you saw it earlier in Bitcoin, but I wouldn't say a lot of that is there. There's still obviously some. And now I forgot what the question was.
Prediction for the future.
Um, Prediction for the future. uh, to the $1 million. Look, the government is not our friend. That's one of the weird things about Bitcoin. Is that communities their embracement of the government, and I get it. I guess the more they are a friend than not, and certainly Trump administration has been so much better for Bitcoin and the price of everything than the previous administration and the horrible things, that they were doing. But I don't think in the long run the government is going to be our friend. I don't think in the long run the government, it's certainly not in the government's best interest in terms of, if the government and the people in government are there to make money and keep power, I don't think Bitcoin is something that really helps them do that.
Okay. Well, I think that's honestly a good place to end it. Keep custody of your Bitcoin. The government is not your friend. Make sure that you're enjoying community because 1+1 can equal 100, and have an edge. Build your edge, know your edge, and have an edge.
Thanks, Davis.
Yeah. Well, thanks, Lou. Appreciate it.